But speaking of things of representation and election and all that and everything, Idaho House Bill 470 and the creation of the Office of Election Crimes and Security. Idaho's House Bill 470 is set to introduce a significant change to the state's approach to election integrity. The bill proposes the establishment of the Office of Election Crimes and Security within the Office of the Attorney General. This new office would be responsible for investigating and responding to allegations of election crimes and other violations of election laws. The creation of this office is expected to have a profound effect on the state's election process by centralizing the investigative and prosecutorial authority for election-related crimes within the Attorney General's office. The bill aims to streamline the response to election fraud and ensure that Idaho's elections are secure from both internal and external threats. However, the bill has not been without controversy, like most things in Idaho. Notably, the Idaho Secretary of State, who traditionally plays a significant role in overseeing elections, was not included in the drafting of this bill or in the proposed structure of the new office. This omission has raised concerns about the potential for overlapping responsibilities and the effectiveness of the new office in collaborating with existing election officials. Supporters of the bill argue that it will enhance the state's ability to address election fraud and protect the integrity of the voting process. Critics, on the other hand, worry about the potential for governmental overreach and the implications for transparency and accountability in election administration. The bill's passage would align Idaho with other states that have established similar offices, such as Florida, where the office reports to the Secretary of State. As the bill moves to the House floor, its supporters and opponents continue to debate its merits, with the potential for legal challenges and further legislative action in the future. Which, I will admit, my first inclination with this was that this isn't a good thing. But I will say I saw that it was over there in Florida. Basically, from what I'm understanding, instead of having like a bunch of different individual lawsuits or different things that are happening or court cases, that it would be a little bit more centralized at the state level so that things are moving along smoothly. I will admit sometimes I lean towards being like, centralization doesn't make me as happy in that sense. And sometimes it doesn't go great because we've seen other parts where attorney generals have had their hands in the cookie jar, shall we say. But it's an interesting idea. I get that Idaho is trying to sit here, and I think some legislatures are trying to be like, hey, we're doing something to curb and to be aware of election fraud, which seems to be happening more and more in elections. People are trying to tamper, trying to deal with it because of either passion or concern or worries or fears or whatever else. As for how this is formatted, it'll be interesting to hear. Obviously, it hasn't been voted on. I think it's still trying to move its way towards committee. Let me look here. It has passed out of committee with a due pass recommendation filed for second reading. So that's going to be voted on Monday.
Yeah, I wonder how much of this is reactionary to a lot of the things that we saw go wrong during the 2020 election in places like Georgia and Arizona and Michigan and Pennsylvania and Ohio. Like the list is quite long of places that had odd election things happen.
Right.
And so my question is this a knee-jerk reaction now or 4 years after, so maybe not super knee-jerk, or is this an actual in good faith action to try and make sure that our elections are administered well and per the law? If it's the latter, where it is actually a good faith effort to make sure our elections are held with integrity, then sure, that sounds like it could be a good idea.
Right.
If we're just adding more people onto the roster for jobs that don't really need to be done, well, then it might not be worth doing. So I don't know. To really have an opinion on this, I would probably need to do a decent amount more research to figure out what this bill is actually doing and why.
Right.
Because I think it goes beyond what the bill is and why the bill is being pushed.
Right. And on that, I pulled it up real quick, and I went down here. So it's adding a new chapter to Section 1, Title 24 of Idaho Code. And the new section that's being added is Section 19 there, to establish the Office of Election Crimes and Security Pursuit, to Section 342601 Idaho Code to exercise concurrent investigative and prosecutorial authority and responsibility with the county prosecutor to prosecute persons for the commission of election crimes set forth in Chapter 23, Title 18 Idaho Code, any other violations of election fraud set forth in Title 34 or Title 50 of Idaho Code. So, call me wrong, but reading that, I take that as there's going to be a new position there that's helping the Attorney General, and they're specifically focused on election, having a specific individual for that.
Yeah.
But it sounds like the Attorney General, the buck is still going to stop with them type of thing.
It seems that way.
It'll be interesting to see how it progresses. From what I'm seeing with the bill isn't giving the state any more power than it already has over election stuff. It's just purely saying, we're trying to make sure there's a dedicated person for this and that we're streamlining this at a central level.
I think you're right. I think this bill makes sense.
Right.
I mean, I could be wrong, but I think it makes sense. I don't necessarily see where it's a bad thing.
Right.
So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. I don't.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, going forward with this, it's probably going to be voted on. I'll be very curious to see how the votes do end up playing out. But yeah, it'll be very, very interesting to see as it progresses with this.